and you'll notice that he goes off on tangents in this episode. He has a phenomenal memory. The 08-09 real estate crisis really put him into a bind, but he's reinvented himself, and it's really impressive. A lot of respect for someone that is so open about the mistakes they've made, and I think they're going to help people listening to this episode will learn a lot about what not to do, but also what to do. I think the fact that he's being so open and transparent is really cool to see. So without further ado, I give you a brewer. Being a Jew, awesome. Managing personal finances, not so awesome. Welcome to Kosher Money. Today we have an interesting episode on Kosher Money. We're sitting here with Abe Breuer, lives in Skver, 40 years old. Super excited to do this. This episode can go in so many different ways, possibly one of many. People want to know, who's Abe Breuer?
So thank you very much for having me. That's absolutely correct. But before I go anywhere, you said 40 years old, so I need to edit this part, because before when I said I'm 40, you said, wow, you look 33. Now we can move on. So the question actually was, who is Abe Breuer? So like you said, I live in Skver. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Skver, so my parents lived in Skver. My in-laws live in Skver. My wife is from Skver. We have 7 beautiful kids. They go to Skver Cheder school and so on. Our oldest is married and she's a teacher in Skver, but she actually lives in Monsey. So that's where we grew up, that type of thing. Now, I did do Cheder and Yeshiva in Skver, except one year I actually went to, I was in Shalim, I was in Chabin in Yeshiva over there, which was a lot of fun. So much so fun that after a year, the Mashgiach said to my father, take him home. I always make fun of my father. He probably still pays for the, the expenditures that I gave out over there. It was a lot of fun. But I was young at the time. I was 15, 16. I was the youngest in my class. I was young, first year of Yeshiva Gedolah for say. Came back, was in Skver was in Yeshiva there for another year. Technically then got engaged, married, then obviously I kept on rolling up that way. I wasn't the best student in class because I had ADHD and ADHD. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I had multiple businesses and things going from when I was 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old.
What businesses did you have when you were 6, 7, 8?
So I'll never forget, so one of these things I'll never forget, she's an old lady, she lives in Skver. I can't really say the name because, obviously, and it's all it's hippa and so on, but I do visit her from time to time. Mm-hmm. I mean, really old. And she used to run the library in Skver. Now, I have no idea how the library in Skver would compare to a library that you guys grew up with, or obviously, which I know now how the world of library looks like, but certainly no DVDs or anything to that nature. But again, a library. And I convinced her that I'll be the bookbinder for the library. At the time when I came in, none of the books had binding in them. And I remember I was in, so it would be Kitavov, 6th grade, so essentially it would be maybe, 9 years old, something of that nature. And I got paid $1 a book, and I do remember saving over $1,000 after that year. So I had to do a lot of books to get. So that's one of them, or cleaning hats and fixing bikes and so on. And then as I got older, I did more older things. So computers came out at the time. And
how old were you at that time?
I was maybe 13, 14 years old.
Gotcha.
So I sold that business though.
At what age did you sell that business?
I sold that business when I came back from Israel. I was 16 years old. I sold it for $25,000.
$25,000. Was that a profit or there was some?
Very interesting. So I had no love for money. I always loved what money could buy, the status. In other words, in real essence, being today 40 and having kids of my own, it's meaning filling a void, which I guess I lost by something. I don't know why. Maybe by not being the best kid, or I don't know.
We should combine him with Dr. Peretinsky, one of our previous guests, psychology. We'll bring them all together for a panel discussion.
Well, you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 chairs. So we could get this done, 10 chairs.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I sold it for $25,000. The person that bought it for $25,000, I owed him roughly $35,000. And there was some more. But I had a good time. I was living. I was doing my thing,
So then, you had a computer company, sold it at the age of about 16 for $25,000. What age did you get married?
I was 19.
19. And I think you mentioned you were working in car sales at the time?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go back to the computers for a second because it's just a memory that popped in.
Go ahead.
So I remember I was in yeshiva and on the public phone. Again, cell phones was the rare, thing at the time. My father had one, but mamish nish. And I remember I was at the public phone I can't remember whom I spoke to, but I believe it was somebody in the state, and I was trying to figure out what company name to form for my company. And essentially, the company was Hudson Computers USA, and I was trying to get Hudson Computers, and Hudson Computers belonged to somebody else, so I had to make Hudson Computers USA. Weirdly enough, a couple of weeks back, somebody had to pay me for something, and he brought me a check from Hudson Computers USA. That company is still around.
Wow.
It's probably
Wow.
A little caca company, but I'm saying
Right.
it's still around.
That's
that
awesome.
type of thing.
That's your baby.
So so that's the other thing also. I think that part of success is, and I know I may be jumping in a whole different conversation, but to me, there's no such thing as my baby, so I don't get disappointed very well. So in other words not very well, not very often. So in other words if what's considered quote unquote your baby doesn't work out, then essentially it leads to people walking into depression and a different aisle or avenue where you don't want to be. Versus I need to be the success. So if Hashem gives it to me in computers, I'll do it in computers. If tomorrow it's in water, I'll do it in water, or on microphones, or in TVs, whatever the case is. It's just me needing to be the best. So my baby, I couldn't care less, that type of a thing.
Interesting outlook. Yeah, because people get very emotionally invested in their business. They put the amount of sweat and years and tears into it, and if that doesn't work out, they're a total mess. But if they would just pivot into something else and think bigger picture.
That's one of the biggest problems when it comes for people that have businesses. And typically when I speak to someone, I take out a pen and I usually write down stuff so I could continue to remember different things. Remember, I'm ADHD, that type of thing. So my pen and paper is my best thing. So I hope we could get back to these conversations. But one of the biggest problems in businesses is that people's outlook in terms of what they want in business gets shadowed by the sweat and the effort that they've put in, which is totally unrealistic to what the actual value of the company is, or the actual, and you see it a lot by kids, but kids that go off the derech, that parents' emotions. I'm going to tell you a perfect story and you'll get this. So my mother, she passed away 3 years ago. Leah Shalom, smart, very smart person. She was gewaldig. So my mother, she for most of a year, she did kids therapy with kids, that type of a thing. So she had some training and some courses and some stuff that she passed. I don't even know what, but whatever. And she worked for the school system in the town of Ramapo. That's where we live. Square and Muncie, it's all under the town of Ramapo. And I'll never forget it. So there was a kid in my class. We were maybe 13, 14 years old. He was my chavrusa. And he wasn't doing good. I mean, physically, mentally, it was all over the place, and he wasn't good. So he used to talk to me a lot. I give people that comfortability, so he was just spitting it out, that type of thing. And I went back to my mother and I asked her, I can't understand something. This boy's father is this big guy in yeshiva, and he's this big Baal Mechanech, and he's actually very good Baal Mechanech. He does great. But why is his son so, why can't he do the same thing with his son? So my mother said, and she said, very simple. It took 30 seconds. She said, very simple. She said, look, if somebody has a garden, he loves the garden, right? So he puts water, but now he puts it with emotion. So he puts too much water. So what happens to his garden? He just overflushes it and just turns out to be nothing. So that's the same thing. And that's the same thing in business with people. As soon as you get emotionally involved, and as soon as it becomes an emotional type of thing, now starts the fights, the disagreements, and everything and so on. And I've told you this on the phone, I believe, each and every one of my companies, almost, I have partners. And none of the partners think alike, because if you have a partner that you think alike with your partner, he's your friend, he's not your partner. That's a marriage, that's not a partnership. You need these two different things to be able to juggle it and so on. So that's that.
That's very interesting. Partnerships, and we'll get into that, is we did a whole episode. You can talk for hours on partnerships and how to construct it or whatnot. But I want to, and we are going to get there. I want to go back to the car sales. You get married.
No, that's before I got married.
Before you get married.
So I come back from Eretz Yisrael. I sold a computer company.
Okay.
And then my brother. So I'm the seventh out of 12.
7 out of 12.
So my brothers and sisters, very supporting. We're having a lot of fun. And again, I'm the fun kid. I just all over the place. That type of thing. And one of my brothers, I don't know if he did it because he enjoyed my company or did it for a favor to my parents, but we used to hang out a lot, sort of like every night, 2-3 hours, and just fun stuff. We used to do projects and whatever work he was involved in and so on. And like my father, that brother is very much, Consumer Reports says that this car is the right car to buy, I don't know you, but me, I buy the car, it looks good, that type of thing. So we go... So he wants to buy at the time. He wants to buy a Chevy Malibu. That's what it was, because he read in Consumer Reports that the Honda Accord, Chevy Malibu, and something else, I don't care, whatever. So he wants. So he knows I'm the big talker, the salesman type of guy. So he takes me to a dealership. It's called Curland Chevy Cadillac Pontiac or something like that, GMC or whatever. And we go there to negotiate this car. And I'm just doing my thing, and I'm going and so on. Now, mind you, basically me, hat, jacket, gartel, the whole 9 yards. I'm a square boy. I'm in that dealership. I'm getting this stuff done. And then one of the owners was two brothers, David and Steve Curland. And one of the owners, David, comes up to me and says, "Hey, what's your name?" So I said, "Hey, Brewer, blah, blah, blah." And so he says, "I want to have you as a salesman. We don't have much of the, of the Yiddish market. He's a fry Yiddish. So we don't have the Yiddish market. And I want to have you as a salesman." So I'm just buying, like, I'm supposedly in yeshiva. I got to get engaged, Stigma is a big thing, What do I do? I go into a dealership and I start working and so on. And forget about this. I'm like 16 and a half, maybe 17 years old. So I'm thinking, and I said, you know what? And I start pulling from him, like, how badly do you want me to work, that type of thing and so on. So then I go away and I talk to my brother, and then maybe a couple days later I come back and I said, look, if we could work this out, that I do not have to sit in the showroom. In other words, you could give me an office upstairs, okay? Mm-hmm. You are paying to put in ads in Yiddish to my liking, to where I think is nice. So at the time it was the Yid or the Zeitung, maybe Hamadia, I don't remember. These ads with my cell phone number on it. I had a cell phone at the time already. With my cell phone number on it and an extension and so on, I'm willing to do this, okay? So I'm like 16 and a half, 17 years old. So they did it. Later, they even gave me a key to the dealership. And I figured out very soon that there's no alarm system at that dealership and no one. That dealership used to close at 8:30 p.m. So I used to go there only at lunch or maybe Sundays when they didn't work. And, just if I had appointments. Because, again, my concept of customers was just, Yoeli and Yankee and Ellie, that type of thing. It wasn't I had to sell to Jim Smith, So he gave me a key to the dealership. And for a very long time, I'll never forget this. 8:30 he closed. By 8:45, a taxi, a Bachram showed up. We took one of the loaner cars, popped the dealer plate on it, rolled around half a night, brought it back. So we had a good time. So I did that for a little while. I sold a decent amount of cars.
Enough for him to keep you.
I didn't want to at the point, because what happened is, so when you buy your car, you buy it by whatever, by a leasing company. Right. Why do you do that? Because for the person to stick to just Honda, just Toyota, that's limiting his hands. Right. So we realized that. So after being there with another guy that came back from Israel, he got married the year before me. He's way older than me. We opened up a leasing company called Simple Leasing. Okay. And we actually closed it the Friday from my Shabbos Ofruf. It wasn't doing like crazy well. We just made a living. It wasn't a business. It was a job per se, a job for yourself, right. That type of thing. And so we did that. We did the dealership. I had a lot of fun. But I just want to end you the story very funny. So I kept a relationship with the Curlins for a long time, David and Steve. Steve actually passed away about a year ago. And David they ended up selling the dealership. David ended up working for Rekatina Lexus. And 2 years after my chasana, I was doing sales and buying real estate at the time. I bought my first Lexus, or better said, the company that I worked for bought my Lexus because I was doing good. And we bought it from him. And now the multiple attorneys that I have, so I have a real estate attorney, and I have, for residential, for commercial, and a business. My business attorney is actually David's son, Adam Curland. Great guy. We always laugh. And full circle. Yeah, we just made bar mitzvah. He came to the bar mitzvah and so on and so forth. So I did that.
So you mentioned real estate. You got into real estate when? 2000, 2001?
So I got married in 2000. And then what I knew very much is that I wanted to invest in my marriage in terms of Shana Rishona. So we did that. We had a great time, and then 10 months later, our daughter was born. And then I started doing sales for a janitorial company. Great company, great guy, still connected with him. I mean, he actually criticized me a couple of days back on LinkedIn, and I went back. I mean, good stuff, great guy, Satmar guy. And he taught me a lot in how to open up your mind, So in other words, if you're doing paperwork for, let's say, a $3 million transaction, see if you could do that for a $30 million transaction. It's more or less the same paperwork. You just get it done, that type of thing. So I worked for him, and then at the same time, I was playing a lot on LoopNet. Over the years, I loved the concept of real estate. And the reason why I love the concept of real estate, because I used to tell myself that by nature, the jumpy nature that I have, I'm just not a good businessman. Because business people have to be nitty-gritty, dollars, pennies, getting stuff done and filing and paperwork and coming in 9 to 5. That's not me. Real estate, wheeling, dealing, negotiating, that's me. So so I always wanted to have real estate. And even when I was a bocher and the little time that I spent online, I looked at LoopNet and
Which is a real estate
It's a real
website.
estate search engine for say.
Okay.
It's still around. But then it was like the only thing. It came out, I think, in the late 90s, so maybe at 97, 98, 99. And I was looking at that. And I used to look at buildings. And I always, at that point, had the concept that it doesn't have to be in my backyard. It could be someplace in Kentucky. It could be someplace in Connecticut. It could be in Massachusetts. It could be in Maine, if it makes sense, and so on. And I realized real fast that buying in the city is just not going to be possible for me because I don't have any money and I don't come from any money. So in order for me to buy something bigger, which could be more sustainable for less money, negotiate a down payment type of a thing, will have to be someplace far away. So I kept on looking at real estate and looking. And I told myself that I would be best in residential real estate. And I think it's a big mistake that most of the guys in our community do. And it's the simple reason is because it's a lack of education to understand commercial real estate. So I'm gonna fast forward 20 years later. We could get this in steps, but I lost everything in real estate. But we're gonna get in steps. But right now, I do have residential real estate just basically around a few blocks that I live in. I have a couple of things in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and so on. But my real estate investment is warehousing. And I wish I would have known this in 2000 or 2001. I would have bought warehousing at that time, but I didn't, and I didn't know. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons, and I think it's very important for your listeners to understand this. And the reason why commercial real estate, and you have to maybe have a little more guts and you have to stomach a lot more downfalls or lengths of times and so on. But think about one thing for a second. A person that lives in your residential house, in your apartment, when are they in the apartment to complain about their apartment? After work, which is after 5, 6, 7, 8 p.m., and weekends. A commercial tenant, when is he in the place to be able to complain? 9 to 5, and never in the weekends. That's just one of the reasons to have Harchavas Hadas is to be, but it's a long and lengthy conversation, and it could probably be debated, with many people and so on. But I was looking at residential at the time, and
without any money, right? You didn't. I
had no money.
Okay.
I had no money, but I had ambition.
Right.
I had, and I'm going to tell you something very, very funny. With all the money that I did not have, with all the debt that I had over the years, with all the debt that I had in 2007, 2008, millions and millions of dollars, and we're going to get to that point in life. I was always a rich man because it has nothing to do with how much money you have in the bank. It's all a mindset. It's all in your head. To the point where my father is a pretty realistic guy, nothing like me. And mind you see me at 40, not at 20. So my father used to say, and you say it in public, used to say, Hashem, you gave me a son, a very rich son. Now please give him a few dollars also. That type of a concept. And it's true. So
you had debt in 2001 before you even had any real estate. How much debt?
I didn't have much, but whatever cards I had, credit cards, was maxed.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
I'm the type of guy that could never take his credit cards from $20,000 to $250,000 because he's just always maxing it out, and maybe some month needing to pay minimum payments is because I'm large in their life, and it's just the nicer vacation because why go to the normal vacation? Who would do that? That type of a thing and so on, which obviously is a big mistake, and I do encourage anyone to do that. Today, my message to people would be very simply is look at the big picture, how you want to get there, and fight together, including containing your, your expenditure with the reward of having what you want to have triple times more than what you have right now. But you do have to have big goals.
I like what you said on the phone. You said the reason you are doing these podcast visits and these speeches is so that people can learn from mistakes you've made. Maybe that maxing out the credit cards is one of them.
Right.
But I think it's important. A lot of people can get to where they need to a whole lot quicker if they say, hey, Abe made that mistake. I'm not going to make the same mistake. So what was the first real estate purchase that you made?
So I'm selling this for this janitorial guy. I'm selling to nursing homes and hospitals. The number that you have to sell per month was $100,000 a month. And then at the same time as I'm looking at real estate deals, I found a deal, a 24-unit apartment building. It's in the real estate business. It's called a multi-use, I believe, not multi-use, but the bottom had commercial and the top had residential. Skipped my mind, but basically, so I had, if I remember correctly, I had 5 stores on the bottom, 19 residential units. I actually know the guy, Hamish, the guy who owns it now, but I know who it is. But so this was basically in Hartford, Connecticut. One of the bigger mistakes I did is that, real estate is say location, but I also knew I'm not going to fight with anybody, and I'm not going to go into a real estate deal where I'm going to fight with 17 other Hamish guys who wants it and who's bidding it up. And so I'm not looking at Flatbush. I'm not looking at Brooklyn. I'm not looking at Manhattan. I'm going to look someplace where I don't have that competition, where I could shine, where I could come in and I could use my smarts and my energy and get this done and so on. So
and you were planning to go into this alone, or you were thinking of taking on additional investors?
So I obviously knew that I had to take on investors. I had no choice because I knew I don't have the money. But you're thinking very sane. I don't think that way. Or at least I didn't think that way.
Right.
I want that building and I'm going to get it done. And then we're going to figure out how it gets done. To answer your question on a different angle, in 2006, 2007, I had 65 individual partners in real estate. Could you imagine what it means to manage? I mean, it's just a full-time job saying hello to everybody, that type of thing. So totally doing it the wrong way.
Right.
But again, lack of education. Never had the financial education on how to control finances. A little bit in a sense, if I did it today, I could do it tomorrow, which is totally wrong. Obviously, that's why Chazal say it, not to do it. So that was one of the bigger things, and just not thinking it through too deeply, and that also helped me a lot on my downfalls, not thinking it through too deeply. So it works on both ways. So basically, this building in Hartford, Connecticut, 24 units. I'm just going to tell you real quick how I bought it.
How much was it?
$400. So the guy was asking $400,000. He just finished rehabbing the property.
Okay.
$400,000, and I show up there and I have my nice Lexus RX 330 Coach Edition. I'll never forget that Coach Edition. So in your age, you remember probably. You know what the RX 330 is? The Lexus. Sure. So the little bold. So it used to be two-tone colors, maybe gold and silver. You remember?
Yeah.
Gold so the silver. Coach Edition they had only in one color. So it was gold and it said Coach. Now, my wife took delivery from David Curlin. My wife and I took delivery from David Curlin. So because it's a Coach Edition, she got a couple of Coach bags. Mm-hmm. Like, who cares, Mm-hmm. So I roll up there with my Lexus. I look 16 years old. I have this broker.
How old are you in real life?
21.
Probably looks 10 years old at that point.
So young, like no beard, big payers. My signature was always big payers, that type of thing. And I come up over there, and believe it or not, there's like 18 people that showed up, and I'm like, man, what did I like? Hello, it was supposed to be me,
It's supposed to be a secret.
A secret.
Heimish guys, or
there was some Heimish guys, and there's some,
Right.
So I tell my broker, I said, listen, meet my BlackBerry, So I tell my broker, I said, listen, roll up to this guy. His name is Carlos. He's a great guy. The guy that sold us the property. I ended up buying from a bunch of properties afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I rolled there. I said, listen, after this showing, I want to meet him in his office. And I finished reading a book then from the Reichmans. And the book said very simple. Don't negotiate the price, negotiate the terms. So in other words, obviously the price has to be in the RAM of an area, but everybody that came in there and he was asking $400 was giving him an offer from $399 or less. I walked in and says, listen, you want $400? I'll give you $400 with pleasure, not a problem. You want to be able to close without a mortgage contingency? I'll close without a mortgage contingency. But then I gave him a whole schmooze of how tied up we are with money, this, that, and so on. I said, listen, it's going to be like this. So basically, at the time of contract, I'm going to give you $25,000. Mm-hmm. At the time of closing, 30 days later, as soon as the title comes back and it's clean, I'm going to give another $25,000. So now the guy only has, 12% from me, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. 6 months in the game, and you're holding paper. 6 months in the game, I'm going to give you another $50,000. A year into the game, I'm going to give another $100,000. So in 12 months from today, or in 13 months from today, your exposure to the property is only going to be at 50%. That's brilliant. Why would you not want to do that? And he went ahead and he did it. And again, if you're asking my thinking, all I walked away from there is, where do I get $25,000? I wasn't thinking about the second 25. I wasn't thinking about the 50. I wasn't thinking about the 100. That means nothing. But I also knew very well that once I own the building and I need to get an extension on that 50 or on that 100, he has no choice but give it to me, because what is his option? He's not going to foreclose on me because it's going to take him a lot longer. So basically, I came back to Square, met my brother-in-law, said, listen, I got this building, great deal, blah, 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 the whole schmooze, and I needed $25,000. Remember, I got nothing. I got gas to get to Hartford, Connecticut. That's it.
And a Lexus RX
330. That's it. And so he gives me the $25,000. We put the property under contract. I'll never forget that I had a 1,500-gallon in-ground oil tank that we had to do a pressure test on, to see if it's in-ground. So you have to do a pressure test. There's no leaks on it and so on. And we did that. And then title came back clean, obviously, and we closed on the building. And that was on a Tuesday afternoon, and I was king of the castle. I felt like the richest man in the world. You have no idea. I was knocking it was me. I got keys, that type of thing. But then we walked into a very dangerous place in the real estate business. Which basically now Connecticut was up and coming. And you have to understand also something else. People ask me today if they should buy in Boston or they should buy in, areas where it's either far away and they see deals that in their mindset, they're sitting over here. So for the mindset from over here, it looks like a very good deal because it's over there. So they really don't know their market. And what's very important to remember is that when the market goes up, the last properties that are going to get grabbed up are going to be in the areas which is the hardest to sell. But the first properties which is going to go haywire, which is going to go out the window, are those properties. The last properties to sell, the first properties to go. So not in a good area. I'm saying it because of the area. Right. Nobody wanted it until they just had nothing to buy anymore, so they had to buy it. So at that point, so I'm buying Connecticut. Connecticut's up and coming. It's happening. So I had Waterbury, I had New Britain, Meriden, Torrington, Hartford, obviously. All these amazing areas and so on. And amazing areas, whatever. And at that point, we're rolling into a time, it's 2004, 2005, where the houses are going up so high to the point Connecticut does foreclosures as pre-foreclosures. So the office that was doing the pre-foreclosures for the state or for the court system, whatever, was basically tight with me. I used to know when a house was going to go up on the market at 12:00 a.m. Tuesday night. So I saw the house before, I knew my comps, I get it done, and we just kept on buying it and buying and buying and buying. But to the point where we stopped rehabbing them and putting in tenants. Because just by holding these properties for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, by doing nothing, the market kept on going up so high, and these straw buyers that had no idea about real estate that these brokers used to bring in, and there was no doc loans type of a thing, because that's what went bust. So we could buy, let's say, a 3-family for $100,000 in January, sell it April 1st, sell the same thing for $160,000. There was no motivation even to care about making the money and so on. So when the market crashed, we had 400 of these houses sitting around that wasn't making a nickel and a dime. It was horrible. It was horrible. Lost everything.
How much money in debt?
So at that time, I had roughly between $4 and $5 million for just you, me, brother-in-law, neighbor, brother, sister type of a thing, and then about $40+ million non-recourse loans to the bank.
So you're how old at this point?
I'm 25, 26.
25 years old, 26 years old, $45 million in debt. How do you sleep at night?
It's a good question and a good story. So.
Were you extremely depressed or
no?
So
the answer is yes. So the answer is I was depressed, but was I extremely depressed? No. So I'm going to tell you a very funny story, and this is going to give you the understanding of what happened, the way my head was thinking. So obviously, I'm bouncing checks all over the place. My car is being impounded. My nice, beautiful house that I have is in foreclosure. I can't make any payments. My wife can't go to the grocery. I mean, every week going to the grocery is like a struggle. I mean, for that $200-$300. I mean, forget about tuition, forget about electricity, I'm amazing because most people, when they can't pay the electricity bill by $1,200 or $800, by you guys it's Con Edison, and Con Edison will be at your door knocking. So then, if you need a brother and a sister to help you put together the $1,200, I had some sort of a way how to drag these people on until it was like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. When they shut my electricity, there was nowhere to turn. Electricity was off a couple of days. My 2 older daughters, they do remember still these days when electricity was off. And people used to say, come to my house or take a hotel and so on. And I deliberately said, absolutely not, because these kids are going to grow up in a very wide-minded, wealthy, matzliach de home. And these times of not having electricity in-house is absolutely going to be the core of how they're going to stay sane people, because it can be Purim every day and it can be Pesach every day. There is a Tisha B'Av also, and it happens in every person's life, and it could happen on a minute notice, it could happen on an hour notice, and it can happen on a weekly notice, and they absolutely need it. And if you ask my daughters now, the ones that remember the story, they ask them like how it was, and they remember that it was fun. We went to the store, we bought little candles, and we had the doors open because it was so hot. Sometimes it was in the summer, it was like so freaking hot. So you had to keep the doors open. So anyway, this is
not the norm, right? You understand that. What you're describing, most people, when they see an electric bill a month or 2 behind, they start bugging out, right? They're not going to let it get to the point. You're sort of like living this almost above life / above worry, but maybe it's one of those mistakes you feel that you might have made when you were younger in the sense that, hey, I didn't have the level of responsibility that I needed to have. Would you say so?
So let me back you up for a second, and then I'm going to try to answer it. So at the time when this is happening, the real estate is going down, I own 2 businesses, okay? Now, like everybody that owns businesses, especially when you don't have enough education in business on how to really scale it and have a business plan, and a huge portion of a business plan is sorting out your finances, you're obviously struggling. So the businesses were struggling, but I'm a very optimistic person. So I always went to sleep, and we'll talk about going to sleep because I want to tell you a very, very sweet story. Mm-hmm. But I always knew that there is a place and a room where I could be matzliach. Because it's not like everybody else. So let's say the guy that was a contractor and he was constructing 100 houses, and the market went upside down, and his houses were foreclosed, and their lots were taken away, and now he has choives, and his wife, and he has nothing. He has one option. He could be a register in the grocery store for $12 an hour. That wasn't my case. When the market went dead, I had to do 2 things. A, I had to occupy myself 170%, so I'm not going off my mind, and I had to bring home money. My choice was that occupying myself every minute of the day, 20 hours of the day, is a lot more important than bringing home the money, because my occupation at the time was building my own companies. And it turned out to be the biggest blessing in the world for 2 reasons. A, because I put on jeans pants and a black t-shirt and a cap, and I physically went out there and I pumped toilets in my Porta John company. That's what I did. And now, if you don't want to shake my hand again, I get it. But at the end of the day, I got to tell you a story about shaking hands with one of the rabbis in Monsey.
Got a story for everything. I love it.
Amazing story. No, it's something to understand, because people do work hard. People are plumbers, and it's nothing to look down on them, So at the end of the day, me working hard accomplished 2 things. Well, accomplished 3 things. A, I wasn't home most of the day because I was physically in a truck. I fired one of my guys that I paid him $1,000 a week, and I physically was on a truck. I was working like a dog.
You started the porta potty company
in 2004.
Before the crash.
Yeah, we could go back to that point and tell you how I started if you want to talk business a little bit. So basically so I was working like a dog. I fired one of the guys, took his position, and started working. Because I was working in the business, 2 months later, we grew so fast that I took back that guy and to put him on another truck, that type of thing. So the first thing is I wasn't home. Second thing is I was occupying my brain. And the third and the most important thing is that the people that I owed money to, the Balachoivis, the reason why they invested money in me is because they invested in me. Like on Shark Tank, they say they don't invest in the business idea, they invest in the person. So they invested in me. And what they got in return, maybe not money, but when I answered the phone to them and I said, listen, my friend, look what I'm doing. I'm not sitting home crying. I didn't take a job that I'm getting paid $600 a week, where I'm deficiting $600 a week for the rest of the money that I have to make. I am physically working hard. So your successful motto that you invested in should be able to get out of this very strong. All you need to do is respect me and wait. So for them, it was a big respect what I was doing. I was actually literally working hard. Every other company was folding. Every other company, especially in the construction business. The Porta John business at the time was doing 90% construction type of a work. And contractors didn't pay us, nothing to that nature. But I want to tell you, so this gives you a little bit of an answer. I wasn't totally irrational. It's just the way I say it is very simple. I came from a place in 2008 where every $100 belonged to 10 people. To Orange or Rockland, tax, mortgage, grocery, fish store, whatever, okay? To a place where every $100,000, I'm still under pressure, still stressed, got a lot of things going on, but now every $100,000 belongs to 5 investments that I committed myself. So I still have the same dagas, for say. Harchav Sadas is still a big thing that needs to come in here, but in a whole different concept, whole different idea. So let me tell you a funny story. My wife, which is a realist, and thank God, I guess that's why we have sane kids.
Someone has to be in that relationship.
Exactly. So it's a funny story, and I actually said it once in public with her, so it's very, very concept. So what happened is that she really had a hard time surviving, because at the end of the day, you can't go to the grocery with nothing. And you can only go to the grocery and give them X amount of checks, and then it keeps on bouncing. You can only borrow so many credit cards until the guy says, listen, if you don't pay me by Tuesday, I'm disputing all the charges, and actually disputes all the charges, so the grocery kicks you out. There's only so much of this you could do. Now, granted, I took away 90%, or naturally, by the time we got married, 90% of a problem. So the car wasn't a problem. It was my issue. She never was involved in bills. O&R wasn't her issue until they cut the electricity. You know, that type of a thing. Tuition was a problem until you needed the car at the beginning of the semester to be able to get in. The beginning of this month to get in, you had to have the car to get in. That was her problem. So all these things and so on. And one of the biggest issues she had is that Tuesday night, she used to go to grocery Wednesday, Tuesday for Shabbos. Tuesday night, when she had to go to grocery, she couldn't sleep the entire night. Literally, it was stressing her. Naturally, that's how it should be. I slept like a baby. And that's what was bothering her. Like, how could you? Like, what's wrong with you? You know, that type of thing.
Are we talking her heavily medicated, sleeping like a baby, or without
sleeping like I sleep today? Just delicious, you know? So I always say, what I do, I try to do 120%. So same goes for sleeping. So what happens is, we go to my mother. And again, my mother was the person we used to talk to a lot, you know, that type of thing. And she says, look, I really have this problem with. So my mother says, I have a friend professionally that I send people to, and people know him. And I'll even say the name, Dr. Kranzler. He was considered, I don't know if he's around still, but considered a great psychologist in Manhattan. She hands me $250 because she knows I don't have it. She hands me $250 and says, make an appointment, go to Dr. Kranzler, ask him that question. So we go into his office and we start schmoozing and we give him a little bit of the background, who we are, how many kids we have, blah, 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 and what's going on and so on. And he says, okay, so why are you here? So my wife starts saying that we have this stress and this so on. And then she gets to this punchline. Like, how, when I need to have a penny to spend, I can't have it. Or when the electricity is going to be shut off, he's just pretty cool about it, you know, getting stuff done. I wasn't sitting at home and just shaking my legs. I was working, I was hustling, I was doing stuff, but obviously not performing enough. And he sleeps so good at night. How does that work? And so on. So he turns to me and says, Abe, how do you do that? So I said, I'll tell you, Dr. Kranzler, very simple. I'm obviously a successful person if I got to this point, because how many people do you know get in with the bank's $45 million, you know, in the minus, that type of a thing. So the market has turned, and the market basically went down on us, okay? It's very hard for me to wake up in the morning. That's related to depression. There's no question about it. But as soon as I get out, and sometimes it will be maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it will even end up being 11 o'clock in the morning, depending how bad that morning is, how many checks I'm going to have to answer for, you know, either bouncing or not paying, or how many guys didn't come into work because of payroll wasn't made, or how many trucks couldn't leave a yard because the credit card for diesel didn't work. I'm not joking. I'm telling you. And so on. And then I get into the office, and I used to sit in the office, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I used to sit on my lovely friend LoopNet. And basically, so if I could get this, this discounted so much. If I get this, if I only get the partner, I can negotiate the discount and so on, and I could flip this, and I could make $2.2 million type of a thing, and so on. And that's an amazing idea. I got to figure out how to get it done. And I go to sleep. I go to sleep like a millionaire. I sleep great. And then the next morning, I wake up to reality again. You know, it's hard to get out of bed. He pulls back his chair, and this is like 15 minutes into the session. He pulls back his chair and says, I can't understand you. You're that smart, but you couldn't figure out how to sell her the same story every single night? So that's the answer, you know?
Okay. So you have the porta potty company. The markets crashed. Was the porta potty company doing well in 2007, 2008, or was it just getting off the ground?
So I'm very transparent when it comes to the porta potty company in terms of the office and so on. I'm pretty open in the dollars that we do, because I believe as a company, I don't have to physically share it with your audience. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it to you, because I do want to tell you where I was at the time in dollars and cents. But in the company, I'm very transparent with my people. Everybody knows what kind of sales we did. Everybody knows how much more we did. And we celebrate together, you know, that type of thing and so on. Because I think that gives the drive, although it may be my company, but essentially it's our company. You know, it's everybody else's company, because that's how we have a job. That's how we get bonuses, and that's how we get paid. Mind you, for many, many years, and a lot of the employees that I have been with us from 16 years ago. So the company's 18, 19 years old, but they've been with us 16 years and 14 years and 12 years and 10 years. We're a great company to work for. And
how many employees do you have now?
Right now we have over 100 employees in this company. I have different companies, but this company. So at that point, we opened the company in 2004 from scratch. Didn't buy anybody out. We decided on a Motzei Shabbos. We decided that so when we say we, it was me and a partner. So my friends used to bug me always, like, I always have these good ideas, but not all of them are tangible. Something that, you know, So basically, I got into this business. The reason why I got into this business is because construction was booming at the time. And I wanted to be in construction, but again, like I did the same thing with the real estate. I didn't want to be in a business where I'm fighting with you and him and Yankee and Moishi. I don't want that. I want to be in a business where I could shine myself. And I knew very well that if you have $1 million, you're not putting it in a Porta-John company. Trust me. You're putting it putting it into different places and so on. And I also realized that at the time there wasn't another Yeed. Actually, there is another guy in Williamsburg, which we work great together. Great company that does what we do, and a little bit different. He's geared 90% to construction. We're 50. 50 between construction and events. It's a little bit different. We're nationwide. He's not, that type of thing. But I didn't know he existed at the time. So I knew there's no Yid being in this business. So I decided I'm going into that business. So that was Motzei Shabbos. Thursday afternoon, the first 112 because that's how the container comes. First 112 Porta-John were delivered on a yard, which we just rented, because we had an office over there and a used truck. I didn't have my license, didn't have my permit, but the guy that I bought the used truck from, I convinced him to let his license go for the next 6 months until I get mine. Dumping license, waste license, and so on. But the problem was the truck was a stick shift. And between me and my partner, the only one that could drive a stick shift is me. And why am I the only one that could drive a stick shift? Because I was in Israel and Israel when I was 15. So I got that knowledge over there. So I buy the truck, buy the Porta-Johns. It's like 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and boom, we're in business. Come up with the name, come up with the slogan, get it done, and so on. And I also knew one thing: I want to be different. I want to be distinct. I want to be, out there. And my Porta-Johns are purple. Our company is purple. John to Go is purple. That was totally my idea, and I wanted to be different. So we did 6 months. We did with that partner. After 6 months, we were struggling. You go through a winter. Your toilets get frozen. Your truck gets frozen. I mean, it's just horrible, And my partner says, "Look, either we're closing shop. We'll sell what we have, or buy me out for what I invested." So I basically said, I ain't giving up that fast. Doesn't work like that. So my brother, which I had a real estate partnership with, cashed out a couple of dollars. We sold something. So this is still in 2005. It's 2005 now. So he bought out my partner. My brother and I are 50-50 partners in the business, that type of a thing. Okay. So at the time when 2007 comes around, this company is doing gross sales of $600,000. Can you imagine? That's basically, technically, you're losing money. I don't have a bank. I don't have a credit line. I have nothing. And again, my trucks can't leave in some days because diesel is not, So that's where I was. But I was hustling, and I was working, and I was fighting, and I was calling. I was doing sales, and I was doing, cleaning. And we had the thing that we had. My brother and I used to go in the truck together. We used to clean. I used to always say this joke that we were once in KJ in Monroe in Kersey, and we're delivering toilets, picking up toilets, and whatever. And I'm younger. My brother's 11 years older than me. I'm younger, more, So I'm just getting up on the truck and down on the truck and pushing up 4 units and so on. And my brother's standing at the lift gate, just making the lift gate up and down and so on. And my brother's a funny guy, so he basically says to these kids, if you're not going to learn good and chayder, you're going to look like him when you get older. Yeah. So
are you slowly paying back the debt as the company starts to grow?
So one of the things that but there was also other money that was coming in slowly. So let's say we had a deposit on a building, so we had to fight to get that $50,000 back. So it was like $15,000. We had a retainer with an attorney. We said, what, don't do that anymore because there's no, that type of a thing. So what I did with most of the balachayvus is, and again, it depends on natures of people. I'm telling you, every $100 belonged to 25 people. That type of a thing, including running a business. So at that point, I sort of made these with these people basically. I say like this: look, I want to pay you back tomorrow morning. My hope, you're going to be paid up 100%. Let's say a $100,000 issue. I want to pay you back tomorrow morning. My hope is by next year, this time you're going to be paid back 100%. And I gave him a whole sell because my business this and that and I was convinced. Trust me, I was convinced and so on. But right now, in order to show you that I'm not abandoning you, I'm giving you $50 a week. Because I'm here. So like this, we could communicate. Every week we got to communicate. Here's your $50 and whatever and so on. So I did it that way. And it wasn't easy. I'm saying it to you right now that it's just easy and so on. No, I had to dodge many phone calls, and I had at points. And there's actually a guy that lives here in the Five Towns. We're good friends, but I owed him money, and he used to come to our house, knock 3 o'clock in the morning. The kids were scared. I had at some points people screaming at my wife in the street. Your husband owes this and that and the other and so on and so forth and so on.
Very
so
hard.
That's that. It's very hard. One of the biggest issues is that so as I was going in 2000 and 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, being who I am, so obviously you get you do custom shirts and a custom jacket and so on, and they're like, and how could you wear that custom shirt and it's got your name on it and so on? Like, what should I burn it because I lost the money? What should I do with it? That type of thing. But it's just people's frustration.
Did people blame you? Say, hey, because you lived or worked a certain way, this is your fault, and was that part of it, or would they say, I don't care, just get me my money?
No, I don't think. I don't remember people blaming me. I just remember that the frustration that people poured on us was the frustration that somebody's pouring on them. It wasn't anybody that's sitting with $10 million and he has an issue with my $100,000. And I had those people, and these people were fine. They were sitting, they were waiting. Some of them said, let's do it, I had the risk and it's going to cost you interest. Some people said, it's fine. Some people, I gave away some stuff. And more than that, I had at the time, I had collectibles of ksovim and old books and so on and so forth, svarim and the type of things, probably close to $750,000. And most people didn't want it. They needed the money at the time. It was crazy times. But some people took that in exchange. No. And I had a watch collection, which I gave up. No, I don't remember anybody pointing a finger, blaming. I'm sure there was enough blame because, again, the flamboyant type of a person that's building your wealth is obviously the person that's flamboyant in general when it comes to tzedakah and everything else. And a lesson like 2007 gives you the lesson to chill, dude. Hello, calm down. But it was more, they were under pressure, so they under pressured me. That's fine, that type of thing.
How many years did it take for you? Are you paid back on that?
Paid back 100%.
What year do you think you were paid back?
In 2017.
2017, so about 10 years.
It took me about 10 years, 11 years to get totally over, yeah.
You remember the day that you...
No, because I don't remember the day because it doesn't go like that. Because what happens is once you start making money, so you have all these monies that are being paid on a monthly basis. So the $50 guy goes up to 100 and to 500 and to 1,000 and to 1,500. And some of these stuffs are on credit cards and so on. So you don't always connect where they're up to. You just at some point, you start making your calculations and so on. So it wasn't a specific day. It's just, it's happening.
I would imagine the percentage of people through life, from the beginning of creation until now, 99.99999 weiter percent have not made that amount of money, then lost it, and then started making money. It's a very unique scenario. Have you met other people that went from rags to riches to rags to riches?
So...
Because you do have some people that have made it and then they keep it. They're not experiencing a 2007 crash. Right. Here, you not only went from zero to mega multimillionaire, but you paid it back, and now you have a successful company and you're doing well. You've never met anyone like that, have you?
So there's stories out there, and people that I could put names out
Sure.
I'm not gonna, but I could put names out that people that went through these things, upside down and so on and so forth. But I need to clarify one thing, very simple, because you called me a millionaire before 2007. I was a fake millionaire. I was a millionaire on a delusion. I'm gonna tell you something very funny. I remember at some point in 2003, 2004, and the reason why I'm saying 2002, 2004, because I live in my house that I live right now 16 years, and my son is 16 years old. So he was born in September 2004. So this was still in my apartment that I lived at, okay? And granted, I'm driving a BMW 750, playing the thing and so on. And more than that, when I was a landlord, I made deals with these. So I had C-class properties, kids that were coming from, underprivileged, houses, public school and so on. I used to make deals with them on their tests. I'll give you $1. I was, Mr. John Gotti type of thing, So what I was going to tell you is, I remember once in my still old apartment, based on what I bought in terms of unrelated to business per se, including investing in certain businesses, and not all my businesses were successful. I had to close businesses, and proudly so. I have no issue with it. It wasn't good. I had one business that was open for 10 months, and basically at the end of the day, my brothers were partners over there. I told my brothers, I don't care what, when, where, take everything we have in that inventory, and you start from the first of the month until the 20th. By the 20th of the month, whatever is not sold, dump it. I don't want to spend another month on rent for that facility. Just like that. In the 10 months, dump down just $1 million, just like that. It is what it is. Okay. But to answer your question is, I remember once a story. I was sitting at night at home, and I'm making a calculation that I have so much money in my unrelated stuff. So let's say watch collection, or because I have expensive car, or whatever. Stuff for me, let's say like that. So if I sell everything that, and at that point I didn't have these 400 houses. Like if I sell all the houses that I have with all the profits that will come out, I'll sort of break even. You know what that tells you? That tells you guys out of control. So I wasn't a millionaire beforehand. I was incorporated and entangled and liable for millions of dollars, which an educated person would not do that. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm an educated person. I think I'm a very educated person. An educated person in the world of investment and charts, stats, would not do that. That's what I'm saying.
It would be irresponsible.
It would be irresponsible.
Right.
What I do say, and mostly when I speak, I do public speaking for non-Yidden, doesn't matter. So at the public speaking, and again, like I said before, I do not take any money for it, because the concept is, I could have easily been where, I could have not because Hashem didn't want to, but in a Derech HaTeva world, I could have been where I'm today 10, 15 years ago. I just made stupid mistakes. But these stupid mistakes helped me to the point where when I speak to non-Yiddish public speakings, I used to tell them like this. I don't tell them I got kicked out of yeshiva. I basically say I didn't do college. Furthermore, I got kicked out of high school, because just to relate to them, to relate to the high school setup in terms of yeshiva versus yeshiva. Now, I tell them that in general, I do believe that people that do college does nothing for you unless you're going for a specific education, such as being a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, something where you need that actual degree to be able to do it. But 98% of people that do college, they do nothing with it. It helps them nothing. And if it does one thing, it actually reduces their chances of becoming an entrepreneur, because it scares them away by all the stats and everything that puts out there. So I also did college, but my college cost me $4.5 million. Right?
That's actually what the cost of college is, real college these days. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, good. But I want to know from Square, I know. So it cost me $4.5 million. But at the end of the day, it gave me an education and kept me with my entrepreneurial spirit. So that's the answer. And I heard not long ago from, I think Bezos or somebody said, not Bezos, I think it was Elon Musk, said, if you really want to get an education, you could see everything on YouTube today. Why are you going to college for?
Right. Seen that. So today, let's do rapid fire, because we have a bunch of questions. I spoke to people. They had, we don't usually have guests like you, so they want to hear your opinions. Today, what is your portfolio look like? How much of it is real estate versus the Porta company, other companies?
So, after 2007, 2009, so 2000, so we own a company called John to Go. That's a Porta John company. It's just a typical Porta John company. I saw locally before one of the trucks passing over here, call ahead, which is local here on the on the water over there. So, a typical Porta John company. It's a local company. We have our own trucks, our own equipment, and so on. I opened that in 2004. Grew that until today. Today and continuing. Today, John to Go has offices obviously in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, but we have offices in Florida and South Florida. So we have an office in Miami area, Homestead, Florida. We have an office in Southwest Florida, which is Fort Myers, Naples, Sarasota, that area. We have an office in Austin, Texas, and in Dallas, Texas. Then we have a company called VIP to Go. VIP to Go basically is the fancy restroom and shower trailers.
Who would hire you?
So there's long-term business and short-term business. So the short understanding is a guy's doing a bar mitzvah in his backyard and he doesn't have any bathrooms. He doesn't want everybody to go into his house. He wants to take something fancy, something that has a fireplace in it, something that has fresh running water, something that has AC or heating in this time of the year. That would be the typical.
What does a weekend rental cost?
So they go from smaller trailers to bigger trailers, so anywhere from let's say $1,200 to $4,500. Depends.
Okay.
It's a big ticket item.
Right.
So you have that. Right now we're in Florida doing an event for Louis Vuitton, for example, and they're spending the area of $50,000 for the weekend in toilets. We do the largest boat show in Fort Lauderdale every year, and they spend a couple $100,000 in portable toilets, that type of thing. So that's that company. That company is a nationwide company. That company we opened in 2019.
Most of that is digitally. I'm from the digital marketing background, so I'm just thinking how you're marketing.
PPC, SEO.
Okay.
PPC, SEO, social media. Google, yeah.
Very cool.
That's basically what we do on that one.
You're outsourcing that, or you have your own internal teams at this point?
So, very good question. So, I'm a big believer in outsourcing. So, let me back up for a second. I'm a big believer of every person sitting down by a table, and you could do this once a month, and basically say, what am I not good in? And what you're not good in, that's a lot more important than to know what you are good in. Because if you know what you're not good in, then you could outsource that. So sometimes you outsource it by a third party, which technically works for you on payroll. Sometimes you will be outsourcing that to an outsourcing company. So I am a big believer in outsourcing if possible. So for an example, customer service, I have a dime a dozen people call me on a weekly basis to outsource to India, Philippines, so on and so forth. I can't. My company is a very... in John to Go, it's a very hands-on, need to understand the customers. Every question could be asked 5 different ways, and it just outsourcing doesn't work. I have another company called Guardian Booth, and Guardian Booth manufactures prefabricated structures, any type of a structure where you could just basically pick it up on a truck and take it. So that would be a ticket booth or a security booth or a...
You got into that business
because of John to Go.
Offshoot,
as an offshoot,
okay.
yeah. But it's a totally separate company, nothing to do one with another, equally as big.
These are all privately owned? Any public traded
companies? No, I'll tell you my end game, but not my end game. My end game is to live and to be a good Jew. But I'm saying is, but yes, my end game. So what happens is in that company, we do outsource. We do have, some that work. We have somebody in Dubai and a couple in India and so on and so forth. So if you could outsource, outsource. If you can't outsource, you can't outsource.
People do a double take when they hear that you're in the toilet business.
Yeah,
right?
sure, absolutely. They're just like, toilet business, and they always ask me, so how is business? The first response I get when people say that, I said, oh, that's a good business. And my answer is like every business if you run it right. But then they say, but how is business? And I say, you used the bathroom already today? It's good.
So you have John to Go.
So we have John to Go, VIP to Go. We opened in 2019, Guardian Booth. We do have a couple little companies that we bought over the years that we incorporated into John to Go.
Okay.
Portable toilet companies. Now, we're not looking to be a public traded company.
Okay.
We do have an end game, at least I'm going to speak for John to Go, not for Guardian Booth, but for John to Go and VIP to Go, the end game is to, at some point, sell it. You sell it to a bigger company or to a hedge fund type of a thing. We are a service-based company, which trades pretty high on the net EBITDA.
Okay.
And we do have a dollar amount where we want to be, which we understand in order to be the dollar amount, you have to have the multiplications of income and nets and so on and so forth. So when people call and they call on a weekly basis that they want to buy us, I say, look, you could either pay me that number today or you could wait 5 years. So I'm okay either way, that type of a thing. But that's an end game. The reason why I'm saying what my end game is because I believe it's very, very, very important that everybody has to have an end game in business. And the reason why you need an end game is because without an end game, why do we have Shabbos? Because there's a closure to the week. Why do we have Pesach? Because there's an end game to when I need to have my house finished. So in Yaakov's case, why do you have Thanksgiving? So he could finish cooking this beautiful stuff that he had last week, right?
That's Yaakov Langer in the crowd.
Yaakov Langer, that's it. So that's the concept. You need to have an end game, because if you don't have an end game, you don't have a goal. If you don't have a goal, you don't have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're not doing anything. So the concept is very simple. If my end game is $100 million, my question is, what multiplications do I need in my business to be able to get to a $100 million sale? I need XY gross, XY net. Now you take these numbers. How much product do I need to be able to do that? How much people? How much money will it take? How fast can I get there? That's the answer. And you just get there. It's that simple. But if you don't have it on paper without a goal, you're not going to get there. Some people are lucky. They win the lottery. I'm talking normal people, you and me.
Right.
That type of a thing.
At least I'm normal. I think you're in a class of your own. So, okay, John to go, VIP to go, Guardian Booth. Any real estate now?
Yeah. So what happens is like this. So 2007 we lost, 2008, 2009, lawsuits, this, that, other, whatever. So now you can imagine your name is ruined, and it takes time to build back your name, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth and everything. So then I don't buy any real estate, and people ask me, you're crazy, the market is going, and since this, the market was so low in 2008 that by 2014 you could buy amazing deals and so on and so forth. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing this again with other people's money. It's not happening. I had this already, and I could maneuver myself, the court system. I could maneuver myself with the bank system. I understand all that, and there's no harm. Nobody cares. It's all corporations. It's all yummy chummy. Nobody cares about you in specific. It's just it's a big structure how this works. I'm not taking people's money. Done, over with. I don't care. So it took me until I could pay off everybody, or at least most everybody, and to be able to buy. And my first purchase was actually buying back my own house from the bank. I bought my house from the bank originally for $500,000. I bought my house from the contractor originally for $500,000. I lived there for free for 12 or 13 years. Separate Siyata D'Shmaya, how I went through. I lost the house twice. I have no idea. It was a separate story. I don't know how much time we have, whatever. And then I bought the house back for $460,000. That's basically what the sale was. Then we were looking for a building for Guardian Booth, actually. So we started working with a good friend of mine. I don't know if you say names or not, but Eli Hassan from Cross River Bank, great guy. And
gotta get Cross River to sponsor this episode.
We bought one building, closed that building, a commercial building, closed that building, and like every SBA loan, I mean, me, my wife, kids, grandkids, cats, dog, everybody signs on it. I mean, it's like...
At that point, was your wife nervous?